So I thought today we'd do a quick video on what I've done on the allotment to try and minimise the amount of watering that I need to do in summer, especially because watering can get a bit of a drag, and we're always under pressure on this site to reduce the amount of water that we use. So I've done a lot of work over the years to capture more water. Probably got about 5 cubic meters of water storage on this site at the moment, and probably even more important in a way than having water storage is having a good capture space. And so I can capture water off my greenhouse, little greenhouse. I can capture water off the shed, and I can capture water off both sides of this polytunnel. So that is a lot of water that gets captured over winter, and if we get a really good set of rain in summer, then I can replenish quite a few of my dip tanks. So what have I done? So the first thing that I've done in the polytunnel is I'm strawching all of the beds. So strawch is this composted straw product. It's really convenient and easy to get hold of. There's lots of other alternatives as well, but it's kind of amazing really what just an inch or so of strawch will do to retain water in the beds by comparison with just bare soil. It really makes a huge difference. I don't use it outside because I always think it's going to blow away. Plus it's quite expensive, so I tend to use it on my most high value beds. But yeah, so the polytunnel this year, all strawched. The second thing that I'm doing is growing through these halos. Halos are really nice because I've got these little pegs on the bottom that you can see there, and you know the halo is through the strawch, so that's down at soil level. The little pegs go an inch further down. All the water then is directed down to the roots of the plant and under the strawch layer, so you don't get any water on top of the strawch, which is really nice. Now we'll have some plants obviously down here, those will just have to be watered through the strawch, but that works as well. You know, the nice thing about strawch is very little water evaporates from it, but water goes readily through it, so it's not really a problem watering through it. The other thing I've done is minimise the number of containers that I've got in here. I do have a few early tomatoes in here. I think I've got 4 containers of those, but the vast majority of my container grown stuff is back at home in the kitchen garden, where it's so much easier to water it than it is here on the allotment. So I've just got like a few early courgettes, a few early beans, a few early tomatoes and things like that. Mainly things for snacking really in here, rather than sort of big harvests. So probably the most effective things that I've done on the allotment, to be honest, are out here. First thing is wood chip mulches. So all the paths and all the perennial beds like the strawberries and things like that, and the perennial garlic bed and the trees wherever I can, are mulched with wood chip 4 to 6 inches deep, depending on the place on the plot. And you know, that just locks in so much water. It's great in winter because it absorbs all the water, so we don't get any flooding. We just get very wet paths. And then that all soaks down into the soil underneath, and basically that soil underneath is always wet because, again, just like strawch, this wood chip it just retains so much moisture. I mean, even now just digging down here, you know, once you get sort of 2 inches, 3 inches down, it's really moist, and we haven't had any rain for 8 weeks. So the next thing that I've done is I've started replacing quite a lot of my big beds like these with these little tiny beds that are only 4 to 6 inches wide, and they're just fabulous for things like the beans and the peas and things like that, which put down fairly deep roots, you know, underneath this wood chip layer. They feed off the rotting wood chip. They've got access to all this locked in moisture. I do still water them just to sort of, you know, but when I'm watering them, I'm just watering this tiny little strip. So all the water goes down into the root zone of the peas or the beans or whatever it is. And yeah, it's just been fantastic. I've loved it. It's just so much easier to grow in these tiny little beds. And of course, there's no weeding or anything like that. The only thing you do need to bear in mind is obviously I do fertilise these quite heavily. I use something like a concentrated farmyard manure sort of product, something like Marshall's Organic Extra or 6x concentrated farmyard manure, you know, those sorts of products. But it's cheap for such a tiny space. So yeah, I've really loved this, and it's given me a lot more space on the allotment, and I'm gradually sort of transitioning the middle of my allotment plot to these mini beds, and I'm looking forward to it. So the next thing that I do is in spring, where I can get away with it, things like the allium beds, the garlic beds, so the onion beds, the garlic beds, things like that, I will mulch over in spring with spent mushroom compost. Spent mushroom compost, a bit like strulch, has got a lot of uncomposted straw in it, which makes a really sort of light and fluffy top layer, which again just locks in loads and loads of moisture. Again, if I sort of dig down here, it's got to go down maybe 3 inches or something like that, but I mean 1.5 inches of that 3 inches is spent mushroom compost. It's really quite nice and moist down there, and yeah, it's just such a lovely mulch, and it's weed free, and you know, quite rich in nitrogen as well. So the onions and the garlic and the elephant garlic and things like that, they really love it, as do of course all the brassicas. So I've got another bed here, for example, that has also been mulched with 1.5 inches of spent mushroom compost. It does rot down quite a lot, so you will find you have to kind of mulch it each year, but it's easily worth it for me. It's by far my favourite mulch, and I use it anywhere I can, which means pretty much everything apart from carrots and potatoes. So next thing that I do, which I like to do for beds like the peppers and the melons and courgettes and things like that, is again I'm using halos which are sunk into a layer of strulch, and again the layer of strulch is, in this case, it's about 1.5 inches. It's worth noting that I'm reusing strulch from year to year, so I just scrape it up. In case of peppers, I scrape it up in October. The covers are on, so it's nice and dry, and bag it up. It stores really nicely, and I think I'm using I'm definitely using 3-year-old strulch, and quite a lot of 2-year-old strulch as well. It's in great condition still, and what I do just to preserve its slug and snail repellent effect is I just put about 1 centimetre, or a sprinkling basically, of brand new strulch over the top of it. But I'm basically using like 1 bag of new strulch to every 4 bags of old strulch or something like that. So it's pretty cost effective. It's a really lovely way to grow. The peppers are growing well away from the strulch layer. All of the moisture is going down into the root zone, and you know, you can see exactly how much you're watering and things like that. I have built up my supply of these halos over the years. They are traditionally thought of as tomato halos, but as I say, I use them for anything that I can get away with using them for. It at least halves the amount of watering that I've got to do. Maybe it's 1/3 the amount of watering perhaps that I previously did before I was using strulch and halos, and yeah, I absolutely love it as a way to grow. So next thing that I really like to do is extensive interplanting, and again this reduces the amount of watering because you're growing 2 crops in the same space basically. So this is my asparagus bed, but it's also my salad onion bed and my early red onion bed, and the asparagus just pushes through. It's so deep rooted it doesn't care about the onions. The onions don't care about the asparagus. They both sort of share the bed quite nicely, and they both finish, well, the asparagus doesn't finish, but you finish harvesting the asparagus towards the end of June, and all these onions are out towards the end of June, so it's kind of perfect interplant. But wherever I can, where I've got an outdoor bed, I'll have it interplanted so that I'm watering once, and but since a lot of the water loss is through the surface of the soil, the more you can reduce the amount of surface of soil per plant, basically, the less watering you'll have to do. So I mentioned growing through wood chip. So outside in my uncovered beds, wherever I can, I'm growing through wood chip. Again, this is another bed. It's probably got 2 inches of wood chip over it, and it's growing my ever-bearing strawberries, and they love it. As you can see, they're not complaining. And you know, this, I keep on topping this up, put about an extra 1 inch on every year. The strawberries just push through it quite happily. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm feeding the strawberries with the rotting down wood chip. But every year, just before I put a new wood chip layer on, I do sprinkle a bit of bloodfish and bone over it. I still have to water them occasionally. I just give them like a really good soak every 2 or 3 weeks. And here's another bed that's heavily wood chipped, and this one's got elephant garlic growing through it and trees. And again, it's exactly the same strategy. Just before I put fresh wood chip on it, put a bit of bloodfish and bone down for the trees and the elephant garlic, and then basically leave them to it. I don't water this bed because it's got a bit thicker layer of mulch, of wood chip, than the strawberry bed. I think in this case it's about 4 inches, and yeah, you get down about 3 inches and it's pretty well rotted and lovely and moist. And here's another example of interplanting. So in this case, underneath this mesh, I'll just take that off so you can see it. I've got beetroot, and that beetroot is nice and deep rooted, and it's deep rooting through a mushroom compost mulch. And I've also got parsnips in between each of the beetroot plants, and the parsnips obviously will go really deep. Parsnips don't like to push through coarse mushroom compost, so I just cover them over just with a fine seed compost just to make it a little bit easier for them. They've not, I only just put them in, so they're not quite germinated yet, but soon this should be a nice lush bed of beetroot and parsnips. Again, the mushroom compost here is going to be my friend and do a lot of the work for me. Yeah, we've got the gooseberries, and again it's the same old story, heavily mulched with wood chip, keeping the weeds down as well, of course, and feeding the gooseberries and giving them, reducing the amount of evaporative water loss. I'm on sand here, so we do lose a lot of water draining through the ground, but whatever we can do to keep it from evaporating we'll do as well. And occasionally I will, if there's a really bad drought, I will water the gooseberries maybe once a year. So also do a few other little bits and pieces. So for example, I like to grow my summer cabbages nice and early. So these are my red cabbages. These are the ones we'll be eating all the way through summer. I get these really well established, planting them in about March time, and from a September sowing. And so they're, as I say, they're just really well established and really deep rooted by the time we get to summer, and they've done most of their growing as well. So I've basically done the same thing in my fences, and also in the paths, that I'm planting my squash plants through this deep wood chip mulch, 6 to 8 inches sort of deep, and the halos hold back the mulch and create a really nice sort of growing environment for the squash plants. And it's always worked really well for me. I just hate the idea of a fence that isn't productive, and as I said, I've also done it in a few of the paths. I'll just put a little video up there to show you the paths as well. And yeah, the squash grow really nicely and make a nice sort of green fence. And I also grow a lot of my very water hungry crops like cauliflowers in the same sort of way, planting them in February from a September, early October sowing for a harvest all the way through spring and very early summer. And then I turn these beds over and put plants that have got a lower water need, things like melons in here, again with strulch and halos, so I'm minimising the water loss in summer. And I suppose you could say my final strategy is that I grow a lot of food and so I save a lot of money off the food bill, and that gives me quite a lot of money to invest in water storage, water management, water saving, and just generally sort of growing lots of healthy food. My name's Steve, and I'll see you soon.